After months of dating Jordan, Deborah was finally about to meet his parents. However, just as she was getting ready to enter the house, a phone call from her best friend brought a surprising revelation which would trigger consequences that Deborah could never have foreseen. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda's Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. Deborah adjusted her floral dress for the 100th time, her trembling hands betraying the nervousness she felt. She was about to meet Jordan's parents, her boyfriend of almost a year. The couple had met in medical school, where they were both in their final year. From the first meeting, Deborah was enchanted by Jordan's kindness and dedication. He was the type of person who always put others first, a trait she deeply admired. While she waited for Jordan to pick her up, Deborah reminisced about the moments they had shared, the long nights of studying in the library, the weekend walks in the city park, the shared laughs over inside jokes from medical school. Jordan was her safe harbour, someone with whom she could be completely herself. The sound of the doorbell pulled her out of her daydreams. Opening the door, she found Jordan, impeccably dressed in a light blue shirt that highlighted his eyes. He smiled, that smile that always made Deborah's heart race. "You look beautiful," he said, kissing her gently. "Ready to meet my parents?" Deborah nodded, trying to hide her nervousness. "As ready as possible," she replied with a hesitant smile. As they walked to the car, Jordan held Deborah's hand, conveying silent comfort. He knew how important this meeting was for her. Deborah always talked about how much she valued family and longed to build strong bonds with Jordan's family. The drive to Jordan's parents' house was filled with light conversation and nervous laughter. Deborah watched the landscape gradually change from tall buildings to well-kept suburban houses. Finally, Jordan parked in front of a beautiful 2-story house with a meticulously maintained garden. "We've arrived," Jordan announced, gently squeezing Deborah's hand. "Don't worry, they're going to love you." Before they could get out of the car, Deborah's phone buzzed. It was a message from Anna, her best friend and, coincidentally, Jordan's cousin. "Deb, I need to tell you something important about Jordan's parents before you meet them. Call me when you can." Intrigued and a bit worried, Deborah asked Jordan for a few minutes before heading in. She stepped away a bit and called Anna. "Anna, what's wrong? I'm about to meet Jordan's parents." Anna's voice sounded hesitant on the other end of the line. "Deb, there's something you don't know about them. Something that explains a lot about Jordan and his family." Deborah felt a chill in her stomach. "What is it, Anna? You're scaring me." Anna took a deep breath before continuing. Jordan had a twin brother, Matthew. He died in an accident when they were children. Since then, his parents, Aunt Helen and Uncle Gerald, have become extremely methodical and emotionally closed off. Deborah was speechless, her mind processing the shocking information. So many things began to make sense. Jordan's reluctance to talk about his childhood, the absence of family photos in his apartment, the way he always seemed to carry an invisible weight on his shoulders. Anna continued. Jordan grew up feeling that he needed to be perfect, as if he had to make up for his brother's absence. He carries the burden of being worth two. The family doesn't even celebrate his birthday anymore. "My God, Anna, I had no idea," Deborah whispered, her heart tight with compassion for Jordan and his family. "I know I shouldn't be telling you this, but I thought you needed to know. Just be kind, okay? They are still dealing with this loss, even after all these years." Deborah thanked Anna for the information and hung up, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. She looked at Jordan, who was waiting patiently leaning against the car, and her heart overflowed with love and understanding. Now she understood so many things about him, about his need to care for others, his perfectionism, his devotion to studies. With a soft smile, she walked back to Jordan and entwined her fingers with his. "Shall we?" she asked, determined to face whatever came next. As they approached the front door, Deborah noticed the tension in Jordan's shoulders. She squeezed his hand, offering silent support. The door opened before they even rang the bell, revealing a middle-aged couple. Helena, Jordan's mother, was an elegant woman with perfectly arranged grey hair. Her eyes, the same shade of blue as Jordan's, seemed to hold a deep sadness. Gerald, the father, was tall and slender, with a face that seemed to have forgotten how to smile. "Mom, Dad, this is Deborah," Jordan introduced, his voice betraying a slight tremor. Helena forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Welcome, Deborah. Please, come in." The interior of the house was impeccable, almost antiseptic in its perfection. Deborah noticed the absence of photos on the walls, except for a single portrait of Jordan at his high school graduation. The atmosphere was heavy, as if the air were laden with unspoken words and repressed emotions. As they settled in the living room, Deborah tried to initiate light conversation. "Your home is beautiful, Mrs. Parker. The garden outside is wonderful." Helena nodded stiffly. "Thank you. Gardening helps me keep my mind occupied." The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Gerald remained silent, his eyes fixed on a distant point. Jordan seemed to be in a constant state of alert, as if expecting something to go wrong at any moment. Determined not to let the mood get any heavier, Deborah began to talk about her studies and plans for medical residency. Jordan relaxed a little beside her, occasionally contributing to the conversation. As the afternoon progressed, Deborah started noticing small details that told a silent story of grief. A room at the end of the corridor remained closed. Occasionally, Helena would cast glances at an empty spot beside Jordan, as if expecting to see someone there. During dinner, the tension reached its peak. Helena served the meal in silence, each movement meticulously controlled. Deborah, feeling the need to break the invisible barrier that seemed to separate everyone at the table, decided to take a risk. "Jordan once told me that you used to take family trips when he was a child. It must have been wonderful," she commented softly. The sound of cutlery against the porcelain ceased abruptly. Helena froze, her face a mask of contained pain. Gerald cleared his throat uncomfortably. "We do not talk about the past," Helena said coldly, her eyes fixed on the plate. Deborah felt the weight of the mistake she had made. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" "No, Mom." Jordan's voice sounded firm, surprising everyone. "Enough of this. We can't continue living as if the past didn't exist." Helena stood up abruptly, her hands trembling. "Jordan, please. Not here. Not now." "And when, Mum? When are we going to talk about Mateus? When are we going to admit that he existed? That he was my brother?" The name dropped like a bomb in the dining room. Gerald paled, while Helena seemed on the verge of collapsing. "You have no right," Helena whispered, her voice trembling with contained emotion. "You don't know what it's like to lose a child." Jordan stood up, feeling the explosion of years of frustration and sadness that he had always kept inside. His voice, laden with pain, started weak, but as he spoke, the words came with the force of a long-suppressed scream. "You have no idea what it's like to grow up feeling like you need to be two people at the same time, as if my whole life was an attempt to fill a void that could never be filled." The air in the room seemed to vibrate with tension, and the silent presence of Deborah by his side was his only anchor. She observed every word coming out of Jordan's mouth, feeling in her own chest the weight of the emotions he had stifled for so long. The room, once frozen in time, now seemed to be a living space where years of repressed pain began to stir. Jordan continued, his voice oscillating between anger and despair. "All these years, I tried to be the perfect son, thinking that if I were good enough, if I didn't make mistakes, you would come back to see me, to love me like before. But I lost you along with Mateus. I was never able to just be myself." The tears finally broke through the barrier he had built for so long. The pain in his words was not just for the brother he lost, but for the grief of a childhood taken by impossible expectations, for the emotional absence of his parents who plunged into their own suffering without realizing how much he also needed them. Helena, until then silent, began to sob quietly, as if each of Jordan's words hit her with the force of a blow. Gerald, with his head down, seemed crushed by years of guilt that he had never voiced aloud. I didn't know," Gerald murmured, the words coming out slowly, heavily. "I thought we were doing the right thing, keeping all of this buried. But I never realized that we were burying you along with this pain." The silence that fell over them was dense, almost palpable, and Deborah felt the weight of each second. She wanted to reach out, to comfort Jordan, but knew that this moment needed to belong to the family. It was the confrontation of a lifetime of unresolved grief. Helena, still crying, lifted her red eyes to her son, finally facing the truth she had avoided for so long. "Jordan, forgive me." Her voice was broken. "We shut ourselves off, yes. We thought that if we never talked about Mateus, the pain would lessen. But you were right. We lost him, and at the same time we lost you. I just wanted to protect you from more pain, but what we did was push you away from us." Jordan took a deep breath, his hands trembling as he wiped away the tears. "I don't need you to protect me. I just need you to see me, to accept that I am myself, that Mateus was Mateus, and it's okay to talk about him. Remembering him won't destroy us." The moment seemed infinite until Gerald stood up, his eyes filled with deep sadness, but also something new. He walked over to Jordan and, for the first time in years, placed his hands on his son's shoulders. "We failed you, Jordan," his voice cracked, but he continued. "I thought that by not talking about Mateus, I was avoiding the pain. But actually, I was just creating a bigger chasm between us. I'm so sorry, my son." The hug that followed between them was not just physical, but emotional, a bond that was beginning to be restored. Jordan's tears mingled with those of his father, and Helena, seeing them, joined them, enveloping her son in an embrace that carried years of regret, but also the promise of trying again. Deborah, who until then had been on the sidelines, felt that she needed to speak, not to interrupt, but to offer a new perspective. She took a step forward, with a mix of delicacy and courage, knowing that what she would say might be difficult to hear but necessary. "I know I can't completely understand your pain," she began, her voice soft, yet firm. "But what I see here, what I felt since I entered this house, is that Mateus is still present, not only in the sadness but also in the love you still hold for him. But this love, it cannot continue to carry the weight of guilt or silence. Mateus was part of you, and he always will be. But he would also have wished for you to find peace, to not let grief erase who you are and what you can still be together." Those words, simple but powerful, seemed to break the last barrier that held them to the past. Helena broke down in tears, her cry being one of liberation, no longer contained. It was as if, finally, she allowed herself to feel everything that had been denied for so many years. In the days and weeks that followed, that night became a landmark. Jordan's family realized that they could not bear the weight alone. They sought family therapy, something that initially seemed impossible, but which proved to be essential. Gradually, they relearned how to communicate, to talk about Mateus not as a wound, but as a living memory, full of love. The grief that once defined them began to be transformed into something that honored life without destroying the future. Jordan, free from the burden of trying to be perfect, flourished. He found space to be vulnerable, both in his relationship with Deborah and in his career. Helena and Gerald, in turn, relearned how to be parents, present in the moment, without the shadows of the past. 6 months after that fateful dinner, the family reunited once again. This time, however, the atmosphere was completely different. The house, once a mausoleum of painful memories, now displayed photos of Mateus alongside recent photos of Jordan and Deborah. It was Jordan's birthday, the first to be celebrated in many years. The table, once marked by silence and absence, now overflowed with life. Laughter echoed, conversations flowed freely, and the weight that once hung over the house seemed to have finally dissipated. Helena, with tear-filled eyes, raised her glass, her voice low but full of tenderness. To Jordan, she said, pausing for a moment to contain her emotion. My son, who taught us to move forward even when we didn't know how. I am grateful for each day with you, for who you are, and for the successful future we are going to witness. Gerald, by her side, looked at Jordan and paused before speaking, as if choosing his words carefully. And to Matthäus, he said, his voice low and affectionate. Our angel who will never be forgotten, but who now lives in our memories in a way that strengthens us. Jordan, feeling the wave of emotions wash over him, squeezed Deborah's hand and looked at his parents with a genuine smile that seemed liberating. To family, he said, simply but with a strength that everyone in the room deeply felt. While everyone toasted, Deborah looked around the table, amazed by the transformation. The family she had met months ago, trapped in a web of pain and silence, now radiated love. She realized that true love does not demand perfection. Love accepts imperfections, scars and pains. Love heals, unites, and transforms. And there, in that room filled with laughter and joyful tears, Deborah understood that she had found not only the love of her life in Jordan, but also a family that had welcomed her with open hearts. Jordan's family had learned that mourning, pain, and imperfection are part of life, but that love, when embraced fully, has the power to heal and unite, even in the most challenging circumstances. If you enjoyed, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with a number from 1 to 5 to let us know how much you liked the story. Also, watch the video that is currently on your screen. See you soon.